It is the coldest night of the whole year, and I want you to do something genuinely dangerous. Turn off all of the heating, the radiators, the furnace, the boiler, every last bit of it. Now simply wait. Within about an hour, the precious warmth in your home starts quietly leaking away. Within a few hours, your house is every bit as cold on the inside as it is outside. You can see your own breath drifting in your living room. The water sitting in your pipes slowly begins to freeze solid, and you begin to remember something that your comfortable modern life had let you completely forget. That cold is not merely uncomfortable. Cold kills. For most of human history, surviving the winter was the single hardest thing that people ever did. And the thing that finally got them through it is the quiet miracle we now simply call heating. This is a winter without it. At first, you just pull on a warm sweater. Then you pull on another one. Then a heavy coat, indoors. You wrap yourself in every single blanket that you own, and still, you cannot get properly warm because there is no source of heat anywhere at all, and your own body simply cannot make enough on its own. Your fingers go stiff and clumsy. Your nose starts to run. You begin to shiver, which is your body desperately burning its own energy to make heat. And slowly but surely, it is losing. You start to grasp, right in your own aching bones, just how leaky a warm human body really is. Heat is constantly pouring off your skin and into the cold air, streaming out through your bare fingers and the top of your head, and without a fire to pour it all back, that precious warmth simply drains away into the winter and is gone for good. The night is the real enemy. You climb into bed wearing absolutely everything you own, and you lie there rigid, unable to sleep, as the cold seeps up from the floor and pours down from the ceiling. Frost creeps slowly across the inside of your windows, and here is the truly frightening part. This is genuinely how people die. When a human body gets far too cold, it slows right down. The mind grows confused and sleepy, and eventually it simply stops. Every single winter, the cold quietly kills the old, the sick, and the poor who cannot heat their homes. Take away the heating, and winter stops being a mere season and becomes a genuine threat. So how on earth did anybody manage to survive it before the boiler? The answer to that question is the oldest technology of them all. Fire long before anything else, before the wheel, and before farming. Human beings learned how to control fire, and it changed absolutely everything. A fire did not just keep you warm. It cooked your food, it gave you light after dark, it frightened away the animals that hunted in the night, and it let human beings walk out of the warm cradle of Africa and survive in cold lands that would otherwise have killed them outright. Fire is the entire reason our species could go on to live almost anywhere on Earth, and so the fire quietly became the beating center of the home. For most of human history, a house was built around a single hearth, an open fire, usually sitting right in the middle of the room. Everyone lived, cooked, ate, worked, and slept clustered closely around it. This is exactly why the word hearth sits so very close to the word heart, and why we still talk fondly about the home fires and the heart of the home. That fire was so precious that letting it go out was a small disaster, so people carefully kept the glowing embers alive all through the night, and, if the very worst happened, had to go and beg a single burning coal from a neighbor just to start it all over again. That nightly care of the fire even left a lasting mark on our language. Back in medieval times, there was a common practice of carefully covering the fire at night to keep its embers safe until morning, and the old phrase for covering the fire slowly turned, over the centuries, into our modern word curfew. But an open indoor fire has one truly enormous problem, and that is smoke. In a simple home, the fire sat in the middle of the floor, and the smoke simply filled the whole room, drifting out slowly through a hole in the roof, while stinging everyone's eyes and lungs on the way. For thousands upon thousands of years, to be warm indoors was also to be a little bit smoked, rather like a kipper. And exactly what you burned depended entirely on where you happened to live. In the great forests, wood was the obvious fuel, but where trees were scarce, people burned whatever else would catch. Blocks of dried peat cut straight from the bogs, bundles of dried grass and reeds, and even dried animal dung, which burned surprisingly well and quietly kept whole treeless regions alive right through the winter. Much later, black coal, dug up from deep underground, would burn every one of them and go on to power the entire age of industry. Some ancient peoples, though, were astonishingly clever about heat. The Romans built one of the most sophisticated heating systems the world would not see again for well over 1,000 years, the hypocaust. They raised the floors of their villas and their bathhouses up on little stacks of tiles leaving a hollow, empty space underneath, and then let the hot air and smoke from a furnace flow through that space and up through hidden channels built inside the walls. The result was warm floors and warm walls, gently heating a whole room with no smoke and no fire inside it at all, which was genuine central heating, fully 2,000 years ago. And then, when the Roman world collapsed, this brilliant technology was simply lost, and much of Europe went straight back to shivering around an open fire for another 1,000 years. On the far side of the world, meanwhile, a similar genius appeared and simply never went away. In ancient Korea, people built the ondol, running the heat and the smoke from their kitchen fire through flues beneath a thick stone floor so that the gently warmed floor heated the whole room from below, a system so good that heated floors are still genuinely beloved in Korea today. In China, families built the kang, a large hollow platform of brick heated by the stove smoke passing right through it, that served as both a warm bed to sleep on and a cozy place to gather through the long and brutal northern winter. Back in the colder parts of Europe, the great leap forward was finally moving the fire over to the wall and building a chimney up above it. This was the fireplace. A chimney is really just a clever tube that uses hot air's natural habit of rising to suck the smoke straight up and out of the house. Suddenly, you could have a fire that did not fill the whole room with smoke, which meant you could have several fires in several rooms at once, even upstairs, and finally build proper multi-story homes. The one real downside was efficiency, because an open fireplace is a beautiful, cheerful, and genuinely shocking waste, sending most of its lovely heat straight up the chimney and out into the empty sky. Fixing all that waste led directly to the stove. Instead of an open fire, you build a closed box of iron or brick right around it, so that the heat can no longer escape up the chimney and instead radiates warmly out into the room. A good closed stove can squeeze several times more warmth out of the very same wood than an open fire ever could. In the 1740s, the American Benjamin Franklin designed a famous improved iron stove built to throw far more heat into the room and far less of it up the flue. In the coldest countries, people built enormous stoves of brick and tile that would slowly soak up a fire's heat and then gently release it for many hours after the flames themselves had died right down. And for the very coldest nights of all, people warmed the one single thing that mattered most, which was the bed. They slid metal pans full of hot glowing coals, or heated stones and bricks wrapped up in cloth between the sheets just before climbing in. Later on came the rubber hot water bottle. They piled on thick furs and layered on every last scrap of clothing they had. And, remarkably often, they simply used the warmth of animals, because a great many old farmhouses were built with the family living directly above or beside the livestock, so that the gentle body heat of the cattle rose steadily up and helped to keep the people warm all through the freezing night. People also learned to heat, not the whole cold room, but just the small pocket of space right around themselves. All across the world, families would gather closely around a brazier, a simple metal pan of glowing coals, huddling in to share its warmth. In Spain, a pan of hot embers was tucked away under a table, draped with a heavy cloth, so that everyone's legs stayed lovely and toasty underneath. In Japan, almost exactly the same idea became the kotatsu, a low table with a heater beneath it and a thick quilt laid over the top, a snug warm cave for the legs that a great many people still happily disappear into every single winter. The system you actually have, though, of warmth in every single room at the mere flick of a switch, is surprisingly recent, and it grew directly out of industry. The truly big idea was central heating. Instead of a separate fire in every room, you light just one single fire, a boiler, and use it to heat up water or steam, which you then pump through pipes to metal radiators standing all around the building. One heat source, warming the whole house evenly. In the 1830s, an engineer named Angier March Perkins built some of the earliest steam central heating, and in 1855, a Russian engineer named Franz Sangalli invented the cast iron radiator, that very same ridged metal panel still sitting quietly under your window right now. Through the 20th century, coal slowly gave way to gas and to electricity. Boilers shrank small enough to hang neatly on a wall, and the thermostat finally arrived, a clever little device that senses the temperature and switches the heat on and off entirely by itself, holding your whole home at whatever warmth you choose, automatically forever. So what did heating, in the very end, really give us? Quite simply, it gave us back the winter. Or rather, it took the winter's ancient power to kill and quietly switched it right off. For almost all of history, the cold months were a grim battle for sheer survival, spent huddled around a smoky fire and burning through a woodpile that you had spent the whole of autumn desperately gathering, all while hoping against hope that it would somehow last until the spring. Heating slowly turned that whole battle into a complete non-event. It let human beings live comfortably in freezing places right through the year, and it quietly saved untold numbers of lives that the raw cold would otherwise have taken. It also quietly rearranged both our homes and our lives. When the only warm spot in the world was that single hearth, the whole family had no choice at all but to gather there together. And so that fireside became the true social heart of the entire house, the place where stories were told and the whole day was shared. Central heating then warmed every room equally, which was a truly wonderful comfort. But it also meant that everyone could now drift off to their own separate, cozy private space. In warming the whole house at once, we may have quietly lost the one single fire that we all used to sit around together. So the very next time that winter howls bitterly outside, and your home simply stays quietly, invisibly warm, put a hand on the radiator for just 1 second. That gentle, steady heat is the very same gift as the fire that our ancestors once guarded with their actual lives through 100,000 freezing nights. We used to have to survive the winter. Now, we barely even notice it. And that, more than almost anything else, is the enormous difference that the quiet miracle of heating truly made. See you in the next one.